Welcome to the mythical creatures.
Cerberus is one of the most fascinating and fearsome creatures in Greek mythology, standing as a symbol of both boundary and protection, loyalty, and the untamable nature of death. This monstrous hound, also known as the Hound of Hades, guarded the gates of the Underworld, preventing the dead from escaping and the living from entering. His legend is interwoven with the myths of Hades, the Underworld, the souls of the dead, and various heroes who dared to face him. Cerberus, a three-headed dog, though sometimes depicted with more heads in earlier accounts, embodies the mysteries of the afterlife and the challenges of confronting mortality. Cerberus's parentage places him among the most terrifying monsters in Greek mythology. He is the offspring of two primordial and terrifying figures, Typhon and Echidna. Typhon was a monstrous serpentine giant, often described as the most powerful and fearsome creature of Greek myth, while Echidna, half woman and half serpent, was known as the mother of all monsters. Together, they produced some of the most terrifying creatures in myth, including the multi-headed Lernaean Hydra, the Chimera, and the Sphinx. Cerberus's siblings are similarly monstrous. Orpheus, a two-headed dog who guarded the cattle of the giant Geryon, the Hydra, a multi-headed serpent slain by Heracles, and the Chimera, a fire-breathing hybrid monster. Despite this fearsome lineage, Cerberus became more famous than his siblings, in large part due to his role as the guardian of the Underworld and his interactions with legendary heroes. Cerberus is most commonly described as having 3 heads, though in some older traditions, his number of heads varies. For instance, the poet Hesiod, in his epic Theogony, describes Cerberus as having 50 heads, while Pindar describes him with 100. Despite these early depictions, the version with 3 heads became the most widely accepted. The number of heads is significant, as the 3-headed version is often interpreted to symbolize different aspects of time: the past, present, and future. Some have also suggested that the heads represent the 3 stages of human life: young adulthood, adulthood, and old age, guarding the passage between life and death. In addition to his 3 heads, Cerberus was often depicted with a serpent for a tail, and his back was sometimes described as bristling with snakes. His monstrous appearance was designed to strike fear into anyone who might try to escape death or enter the realm of the dead. This fearsome image was complemented by his powerful, unyielding nature as a gatekeeper. Cerberus's primary function was to guard the entrance of the Underworld, ruled by the god Hades. The Underworld was a shadowy realm where the souls of the dead resided after their departure from the mortal world. While it was a place of final rest for many, it was also a realm of punishment for those who had committed severe crimes against the gods. Thus, the Underworld was a place that demanded strict boundaries. As the gatekeeper of this realm, Cerberus was tasked with preventing the dead from leaving and the living from entering. The souls of the dead were not meant to return to the world of the living, and those who tried to defy this natural order would face Cerberus's wrath. Similarly, mortals who attempted to enter the Underworld uninvited would be stopped by the Hound. His role was essential to maintaining the balance between life and death. By guarding the boundaries of the Underworld, Cerberus helped ensure that the dead remained in their proper place, while the living continued their existence without encroaching upon the afterlife. One of the most famous encounters with Cerberus comes from the myth of Orpheus, the legendary musician, poet, and prophet. Orpheus was known for his extraordinary musical talents, which could move both gods and mortals. His myth is deeply tied to themes of love and loss, particularly in his story involving his wife, Eurydice. According to the myth, Eurydice died tragically after being bitten by a snake. Grief-stricken, Orpheus decided to journey to the underworld to retrieve her, hoping that his music would persuade the gods of the dead to allow her return. His descent into the underworld was one of the most perilous undertakings a mortal could attempt, as it meant he facing both Hades and Cerberus. When Orpheus arrived at the gates of the underworld, he encountered Cerberus, knowing that brute strength would not be enough to overpower the monstrous hound. Orpheus instead used his music. He played his lyre with such beauty and sorrow that Cerberus was lulled into a gentle, almost enchanted state, allowing Orpheus to pass unharmed. His music had tamed the guardian, highlighting the power of art and emotion over brute force. This myth underscores the dual nature of Cerberus. Though fearsome and deadly, he was still vulnerable to beauty and harmony. The story also illustrates the theme of boundary crossing in myth, with Orpheus challenging the limits of life and death, only to be thwarted by his own human frailty when he looked back at Eurydice breaking the condition for her release. Another famous story involving Cerberus comes from the myth of Heracles, known as Hercules in Roman mythology. Heracles was one of the greatest heroes in Greek myth, celebrated for his extraordinary strength and his completion of the 12 labors, a series of seemingly impossible tasks assigned to him as punishment for killing his wife and children in a fit of madness, induced by the goddess Hera. The 12th and final labor was one of the most difficult. Heracles was ordered to capture Cerberus and bring him back to the mortal realm. This labor was intended to be the most dangerous, as it required Heracles to journey into the underworld itself, face the powerful god Hades, and subdue the monstrous hound without using weapons. Before undertaking this challenge, Heracles sought guidance from the gods, particularly Hermes and Athena. Hermes, the guide of souls to the underworld, assisted Heracles in navigating the path to Hades' realm, while Athena provided him with strength and wisdom. When Heracles arrived at the underworld, he met with Hades and asked for permission to take Cerberus to the mortal world. Hades agreed, but only on the condition that Heracles must capture the hound without using any weapons. Heracles confronted Cerberus, relying on his immense strength to subdue the beast. After a fierce struggle, he managed to overpower the hound, binding him with his bare hands. Heracles then led Cerberus out of the underworld and presented him to King Eurystheus, completing the final labor. Once the task was fulfilled, Heracles returned Cerberus to his post at the gates of the underworld. This myth not only highlights the physical prowess of Heracles, but also illustrates the concept of overcoming death itself, as Heracles was able to enter and leave the underworld, defying the natural order that Cerberus enforced. It also shows the importance of balance between life and death. Though Heracles proved his strength, Cerberus was eventually restored to his place as the guardian, ensuring that the cycle of life and death continued unbroken. While Cerberus is most closely associated with Greek mythology, he also appears in Roman mythology, where he is known by the same name. The Romans inherited much of their mythological tradition from the Greeks, and Cerberus was incorporated into their stories of the afterlife and the gods. In Roman myth, Cerberus's role remained largely unchanged. He continued to serve as the guardian of the underworld, preventing souls from escaping and guarding the entrance to the realm of the dead. However, the Roman conception of the underworld, particularly in the works of poets like Virgil, added further nuance to the afterlife. Virgil's Aeneid, one of the most famous Roman epics, describes an encounter with Cerberus when the hero Aeneas journeys to the underworld. Aeneas, the legendary founder of Rome, must enter the realm of the dead to consult with the spirit of his father, Anchises. Like Orpheus, Aeneas faces the challenge of Cerberus, but instead of using music, Aeneas's guide, the Sibyl, subdues the hound by offering him a drugged honey cake. The cake puts Cerberus to sleep, allowing Aeneas to pass unharmed. This episode echoes the earlier Greek myths, reinforcing Cerberus's role as a formidable yet vulnerable guardian. It also demonstrates the adaptability of myth, with different heroes employing various strategies to outwit or pacify the hound. Cerberus is an enduring figure in Greek mythology, embodying themes of life, death, boundaries, and protection. As the guardian of the underworld, he plays a crucial role in maintaining the natural order of the cosmos, ensuring that the realms of the living and the dead remain distinct. His encounters with heroes like Orpheus and Heracles highlight the challenges of confronting death, as well as the power of music, strength, and wisdom in overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The myth of Cerberus, with its rich symbolism and dramatic narratives, continues to captivate modern audiences, reflecting timeless human concerns about mortality, fate, and the boundaries of existence.
Thanks for watching. It will be nice to see you again in the world of mythical creatures.